Congresswoman, Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett had some thoughts about, quote, mediocre white boys on CNN. Let's take a listen to what she said the other night.
I am tired of the white tears. Listen, if you are competent, you are not concerned. When I walk into Congress every single day, you know why I don't feel a way and why you can't make me doubt who I am is because I know that I had to work 10 times as hard as they did just to get into the seat. When you look and you compare me to Marjorie Taylor Greene or me to Lauren Boebert, there is no comparison. And that is the life that we have always lived. So the only people that are crying are the mediocre white boys that have been beaten out by people that historically have had to work so much harder. This is why they don't want us to have education. This is why they are trying to literally say we won't fund the HBCUs, because they know that if they've already gone after affirmative action and they're saying, you know what, don't allow them to come into, say, these PWIs, as we call them, don't allow them to come into these institutions. We know why they created the HBCUs in the first place. It was because they wouldn't allow us into the white institutions. And so now they're not allowing us in. And now they're saying, you know what, we're also going to defund the HBCUs. You know why? Because they don't want any more Kamala Harrises. They don't want any more Jasmine Crockett's. But I got news for them. I don't care what they do. We will fight to the end to make sure that we get our due. Because again, if you want to talk about the people that shouldn't be in this country, you probably need to look in the mirror, because the last time I checked, the Native Americans who some of ICE have been rounding up, or the Puerto Ricans who are absolutely Americans, listen, the only people that came and colonized this place are your ancestors, Trump.
I don't know, Ryan.
Well, by the way, for people just tuning in, PWI, BP is a PWI, stands for predominantly white institution.
There you go.
So people can keep up there. Now, not only did this spark controversy, there was a sub-controversy that we can get into in a minute, where the DNC's rapid response shared this, which I think is, and then was attacked pretty viciously by the left, saying, like, DNC, what are you trying to do? Like, who are you winning over by pushing this content out? Like, who is this for? And you can even be smug about it if you want. Like, and the way to be smug about it would be to quote that famous Adlai Stevenson line, the guy who, Democrat, kind of an egghead who ran for Congress. Ran for president a whole bunch of times in the mid-20th century, lost every time. He famously, perhaps apocryphally, said on somebody yelled at him and said, "You have the votes of every thinking man in this country." And Stevenson yelled back, "Yeah, but I need a majority," which is funny, and everybody laughs at it. But it also, there's a through line from that all the way through to today's party, which runs through Barack Obama's guns and religion and the whole, which, you kind of talk about this in this great new essay that you wrote at, what's it called?
The Point.
The Point. About the kind of cultural elitism that kind of seeps out. It used to come from white eggheads like Adlai Stevenson.
I thought you were going to say like Obama.
Now it comes, well, a half white egghead.
Half white eggheads.
And now it's from somebody like Jasmine Crockett. But to take it on its own terms, we actually should all care about all mediocre people. Like, there was this joke where they nominated a moron to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
I forget the moron's name. People can remember the comments section. And the defense of him was, well, idiots need representation too. And the counter argument was, okay, but not necessarily on the Supreme Court.
Yeah, right. This is maybe the one place where representation doesn't matter.
Let's get the smart cats on there.
Yeah.
But mediocre is another word for average. Average is a word for in the middle. Like, people who are in the middle, their grievances are entirely legitimate. Period. Like, so to say, and so I think there are a lot of obvious things you can say about what Crockett said. I'm trying to say the non-obvious thing. And the non-obvious thing would be, if you are an average person in this country and you feel like you're being screwed over, then that's probably a legitimate grievance.
Well, also, if you are
Because the country should be fair for everybody, including mediocre people.
But that was the sort of victory of the civil rights movement, and it's why there are a lot of people who were involved. I mean, the civil rights movement veterans are sort of split on these questions, but there are a lot of people who are involved who are deeply uncomfortable with where DEI has gone. And actually, this was in your great story a couple of years ago on the elephant in the Zoom, that people have sort of seen unintended consequences as the experiment has played out in ways that create more rancor and are not as fair. And it's not just mediocre white boys, it's also Asian Americans who get the short straw in a lot of these situations. It's not, like it's not it. This is not it. This is not the right Democratic answer to DEI. And I get that Jasmine Crockett is a representative of a blue area around Dallas. Like, I understand that. There are a lot of people in blue enclaves that are offended by the walkaway from DEI. As a increasingly prominent spokeswoman for the Democratic Party, mocking people who are upset about DEI is probably not the way to go.
Now, to try to defend the impulse that Crockett is coming from, I think there is something I think interesting and insightful that she's trying to get at, which is basically that. So what she's arguing, if you shear it of a lot of the rhetoric, is that there are a lot of people who are much more talented over the last 150, 200 years who have been kept out of positions of prestige and authority because of their race and gender. That is true, and we should absolutely acknowledge that. Like, that is a fact. And that racial and gender segregation and exclusion did, in fact, allow mediocre white men to get into positions that if they had to compete with the entire population of men and women, black and white and brown, would have been harder for them. That's like that. That is a fact. Like, and we should all acknowledge that. And so, because that is a fact, it is the case that some people who feel like they deserve positions are not getting those positions, and now they're angry at the women and the black people who are getting those positions. So I actually think, like, on one level, she's making a point that is accurate and is getting at something real. But to kind of blanket, just go after like all mediocre white men or white boys, is not a very effective way to do it.
Well, and to assume those are the only people who are concerned about DEI, or maybe not to assume, but to argue those are the only people who are concerned about DEI is just not correct. And I think Democrats choosing to fight bitterly back in the culture war over DEI is enormous. Like, it actually bums me out as somebody who's more on the right, because I think one of the reasons that there's going to be overreach from Donald Trump is that there's just not a potent opposition party. And part of that is because what we saw from the DNC election over the last couple of days, where you have Jonathan Capehart asking you, what actually happened here? Oh, it was just a bunch of racists and bigots that made sure Kamala Harris didn't get elected. And I'm paraphrasing, kind of, that was
not much though.
Yeah, it wasn't the most charitable interpretation, but it wasn't entirely inaccurate. So anyway, all of that is to say, I think Jasmine Crockett's message is not the one Democrats should, for moral reasons or political reasons, be landing on here.
Right. In politics, you're supposed to pander to people, not insult them.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like
lesson one.
Yeah. And another word for, like I was saying earlier, mediocre would be like regular. Like, we're just talking about regular people.
Okay.
And you want to reach out to regular people. Like, you don't want to just aggressively assault them. I think that Obama's guns and religion argument, he was saying, and he was making a cultural connection too, as you talk about in your piece, a cultural connection to economics. He was saying, as people saw the economic rug being pulled out from under them because of NAFTA and offshoring and the collapse of manufacturing and the collapse of the American dream, that one thing they retreated to was guns and religion. That's where the clinging to guns and religion
bitterly
comes from. Bitterly clinging to guns and religion because they're upset about the direction of the world. Like, there is an analysis it's vulgar, but like you can see it, and it's directionally there's some insight into it. But even Obama, as a politician, is like, it's not good to talk about people in those bitter terms. Like, it's much better to talk to them as part of a collection of us who's going to like work together to overcome this in the way that like a Bernie Sanders would talk about it. Like yes, we are bitter, but we're bitter at the 1% who has done this to us, and we're together, mediocre and excellent people together.
Yeah.
Black, white, brown, men and women, we're going to come together and make the world better for all of us. And there's no all of us in the way that Crockett is talking there.
Right, and I don't know that she buys into the, I guess, ideological leftist argument about capitalism being the real enemy, but this is really, to the extent that she does, or to the extent that she did, you would recognize from that vantage point that mediocre white boys, this is the argument you're saying, are a victim of that system in the same way that people that you're trying to help with DEI are a victim of that system. So it's not coherent, it's not helpful, and maybe Democrats should take a step back from the Jasmine Crockett train if that's if this is an intentional strategy.
Problem is, she rates.
I believe she probably gets she probably brings money in too. And we saw that throughout the resistance. The same thing with the lawfare people. Everyone who was engaging in lawfare was raising money for Democrats. Yeah. See how that worked out.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And she had that, what Democrats really want right now is somebody who's willing to just punch Republicans right in the face. Like they're hungry for rhetorically. They're hungry for somebody rhetorically to just scream, and just take them down.
Yeah.
And she's delivering that in that sense. People can go find that she had that. Was it Marjorie Taylor Greene or Lauren Boebert? She had some like poetry slam-esque riff, just like.
Yeah, it was Marjorie Taylor Greene.
And she delivered him.
Blonde, beach built, butch body.
Just delivered it impeccably, and you're like, I don't know. Politics aside, just the performance was just utterly impeccable.
Yeah.
Just
that was
10.
Something else. Oh yeah, I loved
10.
it. Yeah, I unironically loved that exchange. So great place to land on at the end of today's edition of Counterpoints.
Yeah.
Just sometimes you just have to let them yell at each other.
Yeah.
Let them tire themselves out.
We would play that out as a moment of zen.
Moment of zen. That is such a throwback. Does he still do that?
I don't know.
Huh.
I don't think so. It's probably Comedy Central's. Is he back on Comedy Central?
Yeah, he's back. Maybe he does. We'll have to check it out. We will report back.
We will. All right.
To figure that one out. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. BreakingPoints.com is where you can go to get a premium subscription, and you get the show right in your inbox early, no breaks, full show. Listen to the whole thing. All gas, no breaks, as they say
right.
on TikTok, where Ryan is now a celebrity.
Get over there. Follow me there. On Friday, Thursday, it'll come out Thursday afternoon for premium subscribers. We're going to have Natalie Winters, who is, I told my wife this morning, I said, Steve Bannon's White House correspondent. She's like, I'm sorry, what? I said, it's Steve. She's Steve Bannon's White House correspondent. She's like, yes, I heard you. What on earth are you talking about?
Mad Libs.
How does Steve Bannon have a White House correspondent?
Don't worry.
Well, I was like, so Steve Bannon has a podcast. It's called War Room. The podcast has a White House correspondent. She's like, oh, okay. Interesting times that we're living in. I was talking to Crystal yesterday. We were talking about how Friday morning we should probably also do like an A block, because there's just so much news that's going from like Thursday to Monday. So we'll put out the Friday show. If Emily's around, and if I'm around, we'll also do like a, round up some news for you too, because like, good Lord, there's a lot going on.
So much going on,
Yeah.
But looking forward to that for sure. So make sure you stay tuned, and if you want it early, breakingpoints.com. Hey, if you liked that video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Breaking Points.
If you want to see the rest of Counterpoints, go to breakingpoints.com to become a premium member and get the full uncut show every morning in your inbox and on Spotify.